Hi, my name is Dorji Dhradhul and you are listening to my mixtape on Radio Valley 99.9 FM.
Don't matter if you're high on a mountain or low in an alley, you've always got a friend in Radio Valley.
So not every day, but once in a week, voices of note get up and speak. They tell stories, these voices, So listen up now, listen up to the show. For voices that move and voices that shape, this is the show. This is my mixtape. And here on my mixtape, I am Supe, as always, behind the controls. Tile, thank you very much for being here. Now, we always get to this point. My guest. Who is my guest? My guest is somebody who is doing work that's being talked about quite a bit right now, even in the level of parliament, even on the streets. Everywhere people are talking about the work that he does, or at least the issues that his work affects. It is my pleasure to welcome onto the show a personality extraordinaire, because he is not only a bureaucrat who we never get to see. I mean, like, we never normally don't have civil servants here on this show. They're very shy, camera shy, mic shy, and they're usually shy away from media. So refreshing to have you here. My pleasure to welcome the Director General of Tourism, Dorji Dhradhul.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for being here. Of course, you're, again, one of those personalities that we've been chasing for quite a while, but we understand you've been very busy, and which is why you couldn't come earlier, although we made the request quite some time ago. But thank you so much for being here. However, you are here now, which is a great relief to us to have you finally here, because so much of what you do is relevant today. Everybody's talking about it. We'll get to that in a while. But you've been busy. Tell us, what's been keeping you busy these days, La?
Lots. I think you have already touched upon. So basically, you know that I'm in the tourism. Coincidentally, I think after I joined tourism,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, somehow it is coming into the limelight.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason is, I think, for a very good reason. I think so many things needs to be taken forward.
Yes.
For instance, we are talking about not having a written national tourism policy,
Right.
and we're also talking about so many other challenges that I think most of us are already aware. One is about the so-called the rapid surge in the so-called the regional tourism.
Right.
We are also talking about the regional coverage. As of now, we know that tourism, when you talk about tourism, we are just talking about these three zonghaks: Punakha, Paro, and Thimphu.
Right.
And then also we are talking about the seasonal based tourism.
Mm-hmm.
That means we have, as of now, high season and low season. So
Right.
there are some seasons that we are not sort of having many tourists.
Las.
Then, of course, the litter. I mean,
Right.
litter is also, directly relevant to tourism, because I think the tourists, one of the main reasons why tourists come to Bhutan is, of course, so many very good reasons there. But one I would also say is the Bhutan is supposed to be clean, pristine environment.
Mm-hmm.
So that is another, I think, major issue that is cropping up. So all this put together, I think, trying to address all this. Of course, I'm not saying that we are going to address this immediately. It will
Right.
take some time, but
Right.
the works we have started.
Las,
So therefore,
las.
I think this has been really keeping me busy.
Right. You have been on the hot seat, more or less, or you are in the hot seat right now. Obviously, that keeps you extremely busy. In any case, we've gotten straight into the hot issues, but let's take it easy. Let's start gently.
Let's.
Tell us about you, so that our listeners know you better. Tell us about you. Who are you? Where were you born? What kind of family did you grow up in? Tell us about your life up until now.
Mm-hmm. No, that question actually was never asked to me, so I don't know how to answer this. But basically, I think, who am I? So I like to believe that still now I've been a civil servant.
Right.
So now this must be now almost like 20 plus my service in civil servant.
Right.
So I actually like to consider myself as a civil servant.
Las.
Now, basically, to me, what civil servants means, once anybody has taken up a job in a civil service, means he or she is a public servant.
Right.
And that means he or she, as long as they are in the civil service, he or she should not be having any personal interest or personal motive, or I mean anything that he does. I mean during his term of civil service, there shouldn't be anything personal or private gain. In other words, so I actually maybe I'm not that perfect civil servant, but the question when you say it, it is a first time I'm hearing this question. So. Maybe I thought this would be the best answer. I think I'm trying to be a civil servant, a good civil servant.
Right. I understand what you're meaning. I also understand that you recently wrote an article in Kinsale about a month ago. It was titled, "What Makes You Not a Civil Servant?" Of course, I want to get into that as well. First of all, I just want to say again that the very fact that you are here in this studio on my show is a big statement. Because, like I said a while ago, not any civil servant. It's been extremely difficult to get civil servants onto the show, particularly because they're so cautious, so wary. And I don't blame them as well. We have a rather cautious and wary system. So it is a rather bold statement for you to come onto the show. And I appreciate that so much. I want to get into that as well. I want to definitely get into that. But right now, just tell us about your life, where you were born and all of that.
So, I was born in Thimphu.
Okay.
But as of now, settled in Chukha.
Las.
And then, of course, I went to school in Punakha Central School.
Las.
And then 2 years in Sharapsi. And then after that, I went to Sri Lanka to do my agriculture. So I'm an agriculturist by training actually. So before I went as a Zonda in Gaza, before that, for almost like 15 years, I was in Ministry of Agriculture. So I'm an agriculturist by profession.
Right. And it happens quite often in our system. You could be from an entirely different field. You could be a doctor or a lawyer or anything, but you could end up as a district administrator. Could you possibly have you ever considered why it is that you were made Zonda of Gaza?
Okay, now before that, I think I mean just to continue, I think I forgot to mention about my immediate family. So I'm happily married.
Okay.
So we have 2 children, 1 son and 1 daughter. Son is fairly young. He's just 7 years old. And he's going to class 1, and the daughter is in class 11. So this is my wife. As of now, she's you can say officially a housewife.
Okay.
Now the reason I think to go to the next question, why I think that maybe why I was transferred as a Zonda. So after 15 years, that again, as you may know, in our civil service, as you have said rightly. But now I think this is becoming less and less regular. In the past, I think people from all background can be sent anywhere. But I think since last commission, since the last 5 years, I think the civil service is also trying to professionalize. So they are trying to avoid as much as possible. In other words, to keep as much as possible the person trained in that particular field to be in that same profession. This is the move now from the civil service. But in my case, I think you rightly said, I'm an agriculturist by training, almost like 15 plus years in the agriculture. Then now I've been sent as a Zonda, which is a totally an administrative job. But then having said this, the reason I don't know actually, it is up to the RCC and of course to the rural government, our transfer then, and even now also. So that basically I have no clue why I'm doing. But just I want to share that life as a Zonda, the work as a Zonda also, it was not much different, I would say.
Okay.
Maybe technically I may not have to do the agriculture as such, but basically being a civil service, as I said earlier, I'm trying to be a good civil servant means I believe that no matter where you are placed, I think as long as you have that ideal, I think it seems to be almost like same in terms of your work. So as long as you have your work ethics right and your intention right, it doesn't matter which field you go to, right? And you can apply yourself as long as you're willing to work hard at it and learn as much as possible, right? And obviously you are a man of many talents as well. I know that in the interim period, while you were an agriculturalist, you also wrote a book, Escapades, it was called, a work of fiction. Particularly intriguing, I must say, because that book addressed to a large extent gender issues way before most of us were even talking about them. And there were certain very sensitive matters also, such as night hunting and all of that have been, and of course the culture of that rural girls being exploited by urbanites and things like that. So many of those aspects
in your book. Tell us about the inspiration behind that book. How did all of that come about?
No, so before that, actually, I'd like to thank you. I mean, you have been also my editor. Of course,
Right.
Then we don't know each other.
Yes,
but
yeah,
my
true.
editor, I think, has passed my book to you. And
yes,
I know
sir.
you have also.
I did about 75% of that book.
So,
I
so
edited.
thank you very much. I mean, this
No,
is a
you're
great
welcome,
opportunity for me to now officially thank you. Thank you so much.
Las.
Yes, I think that book actually touches upon some sense. I mean, not really sensitive as such, but then not much talked about those
Right.
days. But now things have changed.
True.
So basically, that book starts from early 70s. The story starts from early 70s, and in fact, it goes right into future. In fact, it goes into even beyond today, actually. So I mean, I don't remember the exact years.
Right.
But basically, as you have rightly said, the main subject, the main theme is the women power or the women exploitation. So basically, I'm trying to speak on behalf of the women. Of course, in Bhutan, as we all agree, we know that the status of a woman in our country is much, much better comparing
True.
to in many parts of the world. I mean, that is for sure. I mean, that we cannot argue. But having said this, even in that book, I mean, the reason why I wrote this, I mean, I was aware of this situation even then also. Now, this book was published in 2013, and actually I started to write maybe in 2005 actually. So it took quite many years actually. And
Thus.
as you will understand, because this is not my full time. So just by the way, I was keeping my journal. So most of these things that are in the book, actually these are inspired from my real life experiences. Of course, it has been fictionized.
Right.
So while keeping my journal, and I never intended to publish into a book. It was
Okay.
supposed to be my journal.
Okay.
Then as it went along, then finally, of course, it came out as a book.
Right.
So basically trying to voice out the women's issues or women's challenges. So
Right.
That is the main theme. Of course, so many other things are also covered there.
True.
Yes.
True. And well, essentially, it's the success story to a large extent of one particular individual, one woman who is born in a village, raised in a village, and how she comes into prominence. There were certain things about that book that kind of stood out also. You also, in the book, she makes her financial success, at least, through water. Which is something that many of us kind of overlook when we think about. Oh, by the way, the point that I was trying to get to is we're using glasses today, as those of you on YouTube can see. Right? Yes.
Yes.
We're trying to minimize the use of plastic here in Radio Valley. So we're drinking from glasses. By the way, let me get down and dirty now. You could have your company's name right over here. If you want to sponsor. All right, so after that shameless bit of advertising, let me move back to what we were discussing. Yes, water. And the future of Bhutan, in many cases, I mean, and for many of us, we've always imagined lay in water, right? Increasingly, big number of us here in the country right now are beginning to see that maybe it's not so much water, probably tourism might be the future for us. And that, of course, brings me neatly to the discussion on tourism. What I will do, however, is to make this very clear and delineated. Let's get into your playlist. After that first song, let's begin the discussion on tourism. Is that okay with you, La?
Yes, if you allow, I mean,
Right.
if it is possible, just on this water.
Right,
Actually, it's very interesting that you brought I mean, in my book, that main character actually makes her money by exporting water.
Right.
And in fact, I was so surprised because that water in that book is being bottled in that, as of today, is in Penzogame.
Right.
In the book also it says Penzogame.
Penzogame, yes.
And it was in 2013 before, but the Penzogame water now today we have, and
Yes.
it came much later.
Last.
So this was, as if, I knew.
Right.
And that is one.
Maybe the person who started the Penzogame read your book.
Maybe, I don't know, but I've never got the chance. And the
Last.
other thing is, this book also has some sort of a direct impact on me, because
Last.
after I became a Kasa Zonda,
Right.
one of my first project
Okay.
is Kasa Suchu.
Right.
Gasa
Okay.
Suju. I mean, so I mean, that is a very interesting. I mean, just
Last.
Thank you.
Yes. Gasa
Yeah.
again known for its spring water and its springs, hot springs. Okay, we will definitely get into that. For the moment, let's head on to your playlist, and very appropriately, the first song is Country Roads. Speaking of the country and Gasa, we have John Denver's Country Roads. Why is this heading your playlist, la?
No, so basically, I'm in the tourism sector,
Last.
and as a main mandate of tourism council is my mandate is to promote Bhutan as a destination for
Last.
tourists.
Okay.
So this song is basically reminds, I mean, it praises the country.
Thus.
So I mean, I thought this is appropriate.
Right. I would certainly think
Yes.
it's appropriate.
And also, but it says, I mean, it's almost like a heaven, no?
Right,
So
right,
Bhutan is definitely a.
I would agree again on that as well.
Yes.
And of course, this is a classic. It's a classic. More about this just after we listen to it. All right, here we go. Country Roads by John. To the plains, where I belong, West Virginia, in this case, Drukgyal. Right, an immortal song sung by John Denver. Now, here's a little bit of trivia that you're probably not aware of. Let me share this with you. John Denver, it appears, actually came as a tourist to this country
Oh, really?
sometime in the 1980s. la.
Wow.
But it was very quiet. He kept it under wraps. John Denver, again, is not his real name. He is actually a Native American, and his real name is Tatanka Kunte. I'm kidding, of course. I don't know his real name, but John
okay.
Denver
No,
is
that
his,
I didn't know.
is his stage name. I happened to learn this, in fact, from the person who guided him, in fact. And even the group that he was traveling with wasn't aware that he was John Denver until one night at Olatang when they were having dinner. One of the ladies in the group, who was also American, kind of noticed something familiar about this person and said, "Aren't you John Denver?" At which point he could not deny, and then he obviously revealed that he was John Denver, but he liked to keep it under wraps. So this is what I do know.
Oh, that's great. I mean, I like to further do
Last.
some research on this.
Oh, definitely, definitely.
Especially for tourism.
Last.
This is a big thing, actually.
Right.
Yes.
I will point you in the direction
Yes,
of the guide as well, who is a very senior person in the tourism industry now. He's been doing it for so many years.
Okay.
In any case, so John Denver did come here as a tourist. And speaking of tourism, right, the issue right now, the hot issue that we're all debating, and I understand there are people on various sides of it. It's not a straight question or a straight issue. There's so many dimensions to it. But essentially, right now, we have a number of concerned citizens, and their voices have been heard as far as Parliament, who are saying that the burgeoning regional tourism may in fact work against us. And because Bhutan is one of those exotic, high-end tourist destinations, and we've had a high-value, low-impact tourism policy up until now, that is being undermined. Obviously, you are in the heart of that debate. Tell us about this, La. What's the official position right now? What's happening?
Oh, yes, I think in a way, what I try to clarify to the media, I mean, I've been talking to the other print medias also. So basically, what I used to say is, I think I'll say the same thing here also.
Last, please.
We are not saying that the regional. We are not saying that we don't want regional tourism,
Mm-hmm.
because as of now, the regional tourism includes Bangladesh, India, and
Maldives, right.
But we know again, as of today, when we talk of regional tourism, we are just pointing at Indians.
Right.
So which is, first and foremost, I want to clarify this.
Last.
So when you talk of regional tourism, we are not just talking of Indians, we are talking about 2 other countries also.
Okay.
So that is one.
Right.
Second, I'm saying we are not saying, we means basically that, let's say,
Last.
as a member of Tourism Council.
Last.
We are not saying that we are not in favor of regional tourism.
Right.
We definitely, in fact, we need them.
Right.
Because they are our immediate market for
Right.
tourism. Because for Bhutan to grow as a country or as in tourism, we need to have tourists. So therefore, we definitely need them. I mean, that is the second point. Because again, in the media, it appears as if we don't want regional tourism kind of thing. So we feel sometimes it's going a bit over the board. So
Right,
that's the second clarification I want to make.
Last.
Now, the third is basically what we are saying is we need to regulate. We need to manage. So this is basically what we are saying. Now, as of now, we are discussing, the government is discussing on what are the best possible way to manage this. Now, one possibility is maybe we'll address it in the tourism policy. As I said earlier, as of now, though our time-tested, the golden tourism policy, which was propounded by our
His Majesty the Fourth King.
Yes, His Majesty the fourth King of high value, low volume. This is a tourism policy as of now, but it's just a statement. So as of now, that is the guiding principle or policy, but we don't have as such the written policy, the details part.
Okay.
So this is presently we are working on this. So when we do this tourism policy, national tourism policy, we hope to address this. So our long-term, or maybe in the tourism policy, what we are looking at is we want to have in Bhutan, anybody coming to our country, once they enter or land in our country as a tourist, then they will be treated as our guests. So no matter, regardless of their background, whether they are Japanese or Americans or Australians or Indians or Bangladeshi, for us, the moment they come as a tourist means they are our tourists, and we and Bhutanese, I mean, you know that we want still to be exotic, the exclusive tourists, the high-end tourism that we're talking about. So we want to give the best possible experience to this any tourist. I mean, all tourists that come to our country.
Right.
So therefore, in our policy, we hope to define that tourists, there will be only one tourist.
Right.
So as of now, we have regional tourists, international tourists.
Okay.
So which I think is wrong. So therefore, once we have this policy, maybe we will be able to address this. That is one. Secondly, maybe in the interim or as a part of the policy, we will be having some regulations.
Right.
As of now, I mean, fortunately or unfortunately, we know that the so-called regional tourists, they don't have to undergo or meet all those the minimum spending criteria, or they don't have to pay the STF. So these sort of differences are there. So slowly, I think the vision or the thinking in the government is that certain fees or certain requirements, like any other tourist, will be also should be also introduced. Now, how we do this, whether it is going to be definitely, I feel it may not be abrupt thing. It will go slowly. We have to respect our neighboring countries.
True.
So we cannot immediately say, okay, now this is causing a big problem here, so we want to do. I think definitely, I'm sure the government will not do this. Even the public will not like to do do this. And similarly, even our colleagues, I mean friends from these neighboring countries, surely, I mean, they will also appreciate if we go slowly. So, so the issue here is, yes, we are talking about regional tourism. The point is, if we don't do something basically to manage, regulate, and if we leave it as it is, then maybe definitely this is going to impact our tourism policy of high value, low volume, the Bhutan as a Shangri-La, exotic, exclusive. That is going to have. I mean, that's going to have an impact on.
Yes, true. Right. The thing is, increasingly, if we go to some of the hot tourist sites like Dochila, for example, or Taksang, we find that these places are now overcrowded. I mean, and that is obviously affecting our reputation. I mean, also there are so many businesses that have come up now because of the flourishing of regional tourism. These businesses have come up. So to have a drastic measure at this point might affect those businesses as well. So as you're saying, so it has to be a gradual process. So we wean slowly. I understand that perfectly. But I just wanted to get it across to many of our viewers who are probably unconversant with this issue, that the concern, obviously, for many of us is that Bhutan, in the long run, stands to gain a lot more from staying an exotic and high-end destination, right? Like,
Yes,
there is no doubt about
There's
that.
no doubt about it.
Right. So we all agree on
Yes,
that.
in fact, I want to add on this. Now, our policy as an exotic, as an exclusive, high value, low volume, it has been there for last 50 years now. Almost it's going to be 50 years. In fact, what we are saying as of today is we even want to further strengthen this.
Yes.
And this policy, I think we need to continue to eternity.
Right.
There is no option or two ways about it.
Right.
Bhutan has to have, continue with this policy. Otherwise, I think we are going to lose actually.
Right. I mean, we in our constitution itself mandates that we should have 60% forest coverage. We are the only country in the world that can say we are carbon negative. That is a large statement.
Yes.
And of course, in the long run, that's our USP as well. That is what makes us so unique. And that is what we can capitalize on also, if we are sensible about it. And I know that there are so many people out there, obviously most of them who have opened, let's say, establishments and businesses that cater to the regional tourism, increase in regional tourism, who probably take it the wrong way, thinking, hey, look, we're making money and the country's making money, so what's wrong with it, So the problem is that we will make money, but it'll all be short term. Eventually, it may work against us, right? Like we are
very true. I mean, this is again something I feel very strongly about it.
Yes.
So as of now, I think the whole population, I think all the Bhutanese people, we all should be concerned, and we all need to put our heads together and heads and mind together, and then to support this policy. Otherwise, I mean, for last 50 years, we have been blessed by this policy. Now, at this point in time, if all don't work together, then there is a high risk that this policy could be, impacted adversely.
Right.
And that, as I said earlier, this is definitely going to send our country into a big loss, actually.
I mean, why else would some really high-end establishments like the Amans and the Umas and the Six Sense and all of that, why else would they be here? The Bhutan Spirit Sanctuary, for example, they see an enormous amount of potential in this country. And many of us see that as well. We agree with them. Why waste that, Mushla? Why waste that? So obviously you're saying, okay, it has to be a slow, gradual process. You're putting certain regulations in place.
Yes.
Might I press you for a small, heads up on some of the regulations that are being considered right now? I mean, if that is not awkward for you.
No, it's okay. I mean,
Plus.
some of the, this is not a secret. So what we are saying is basically, even the regional tourists, as of now, they don't have to follow any rules. Any procedures or requirements.
Okay.
So maybe in the future, what we're seeing is they also need to come through this mandatorily, the e-permit. Because just now all other tourists are coming through this e-visa.
Right.
So for them, what they need to do is, when they process for visa, they already need to upfront deposit, send us the money, whatever is the amount. In the high season is $250, in low season is $200. So this needs to be deposited into CB's account.
Right.
And then only after that their visa is issued.
Okay.
So whereas for the regional tourists, maybe we are thinking they also need to process their visa or permit in advance. But they may not be necessarily to pay the upfront sort of kind of fee. So some differences could be there, but when I say this again, this is not a final.
We understand.
It is not a government statement.
Let us make that very clear over here on the show that this is not a revelation of government policy or anything of that sort. We're just looking at possible ideas.
Yes, we are just discussing at the possible ideas, and also. Whatever I say, I like to also make a disclaimer here. It is not going to be an official government statement. As a Director General of TCB, this is my kind of statement. So if anything is there, then I'm responsible. So it's not an official statement.
Wow.
So the other regulations could be to impose certain amount of fees for Sustainable Development Fund. This also we are discussing whether we should or whether we should not for the regional tourism. So this is one. The other could be capping. So as of now, you know that in 2018, as per our records, we had a total of 270,000 tourists, of which 70,000 is the international. The 200,000 is regional. And of 200,000, we are seeing maybe about 50,000 came by air from Paro, and the rest came by land through
Right.
Phinsiling.
Right.
So now as of today, I mean, the major difficulty that we are facing is on a carrying capacity.
Right.
So people regional tourists coming through Phinsiling, because we have a limited carrying capacity here. Even our immigration people in Phinsiling, when they come all of a sudden together, though we want to provide service, but just simply for the logistic reason, I mean, we don't have enough people there, no space there. So no matter how much we enhance, somehow it gets all crowded.
Right.
So we are not able to cater this. So
Right.
therefore, maybe the number that is coming at a time, that has really... And similarly, earlier you touched upon the tourists now flocking in the Dochila or
Right.
other monument sites.
Right.
Now, as of now, this really appears as a big number and big crowding. But we feel that once we start introducing this e-permit in advance, then maybe these things will be automatically taken care. So here, basically, we are talking about, again, introducing some mechanism like
Last.
management issues.
Last.
Now, just to address straight away, I mean, to your earlier thing, I mean, the other option is, possibility is to cap. That means maybe we'll come out with a number based on certain figures of formulas. So let's say, just for understanding, from Phinsiling Gateway, for the regional tourists, if they want to come by land, we will say in a year, for example,
Okay.
200,000 in a year.
Okay.
So maximum is 200,000 we will allow. So maybe even that 200,000 will break down into months.
Okay.
So maybe in the high season we will allow, let's say, of 200,000, 50,000 from these 3 months.
Okay.
And another 70,000 in this next 3 months.
Okay.
Something like that.
Right.
So we will ration it out.
Okay.
So that is another option.
Possibility.
Yes.
Right. Okay.
So basically trying to control the number.
Last.
Then the other major intervention could be imposing or making the foreign vehicles.
Last.
Now this just doesn't apply to regional tourists.
Okay.
We also have cases as of now. The other tourists are also sometimes coming with their own private cars.
Right.
I mean, it can be from Germany, from Australia, from anywhere. No.
Last.
So as of now, we don't really have a defined sort of rules or regulations to guide this such kind of tourism.
Yes.
Now, with the regional tourism, I think one of the challenges that we are facing is, I think most of this, some of this regional tourism are bringing their own car.
Yes.
And as of now, I think there's not much of a regulations there. Of course, they must be following the RST regulations here.
Right.
But what we're thinking is, we are not. I feel we should not be stopping this, but
Okay.
basically regulate them. Now, let's say any foreign cars coming to Bhutan, if they want to drive their own car as a tourist, then I think maybe we want to impose certain green tax, or maybe we want to say the vehicle, the age of the vehicle, we need to specify.
Okay.
So maybe only 3 years and younger cars can come in.
Right.
Maybe they have to produce emission tests, because we know, Bhutan is known for our environment. As you
Right.
said earlier, we are the only carbon negative country in the world.
Yes.
So we need to protect this. So
Right.
for this, and in fact, our own cars, as you know, when we buy new cars, we are paying a huge green tax. Actually,
True.
it's built up in the cost. So therefore, there is no reason why we cannot do this. So I'm sure even the foreigners also, foreign cars, they will be. So basically, we are talking about vehicle management,
Last.
the e-permit. So when we do e-permit, by the way, when we do e-permit for the international tourists, there are certain requirements. Basically, they need to have a local tour operators, and then they have to be kept in a 3-star hotel. They have to have a licensed Bhutanese guide, and they have
right.
to have a SUV. Driven by a licensed driver. So these are the certain requirements. But for regional tourists, when we have this the e-permit system, they will be also, I think, required to have a at least Bhutanese license guide.
Okay.
Or maybe a local handler. It could be a tour operator, or it can be even a hoteler.
Last.
So some kind of management will be actually coming up along with this with e-permit.
Last. Okay.
And also, I just want to make a clarification here. By the way, when we talk about e-permit, we are not going to introduce this for the first time. In fact, we have introduced the e-permit system since 2017, it seems. But
Okay.
as of now, it is optional
for
for the regional tourists. So there are some regional tourists already
Who-
since 2017
Last.
following this procedure.
Okay.
E-permit.
Last.
So, but the majority are not following this.
Right.
But now, when we talk about introducing certain regulations, means we want to make it mandatory.
Okay.
Mainly to protect our
Last.
tourism policy.
Right. All right, so let me over here make a few clarifications of my own. First of all, if you are, engaging in a business or thinking about doing some business that involves, regional tourism, centered around regional tourism, and you're looking at that as your, potential source of revenue, have a second thought right now, because the numbers are probably not going to be increasing the way they have been in recent times. So there may be some regulations in place. Second thing, obviously, that I need to make exceptionally clear of here is that all that Mr. Dorji Dhradhul is telling us right now is not going to be government policy or government procedure. Please understand that these are personal ideas. It will all be trashed out. There needs to be an executive committee that looks at all of this. It'll eventually have to go to Parliament as well, where it will have to be discussed and then ratified. So that'll take some time also. And what comes out as the final product is something that we are still not very aware of right now. But these are just ideas that are being put on the table right now. So let's be clear about that
Thank
also.
you very much.
Last. All right, so let's head on again back into your playlist, and we'll come back and discuss slightly bit more on the tourism before we move on to some other subjects. Right. So we've been talking about this tourism policy because obviously we care so much about this small little corner in the woods that is our country. And obviously this Dugyakab is one that we feel intensely about for all of us. We're all, I don't know, naturally born patriots, I think, in that sense. So your song is again very appropriate at this moment. Dujudina Gawalu. Obviously, please elaborate a little more.
Actually, it's for the same reason why I choose the country roads. Because now this next song in Bhutanese is basically talking about our country,
right?
How blessed we are to be born in this country, and this is something that I feel very close. And also now being a part of tourism, as I said earlier, my mandate is actually basically to promote Bhutan as an exclusive exotic destination.
Nice.
And continue this legacy which has been gifted to us by our dear majesties. So this is something that for that reason actually I have chosen this.
Last. Dujudina Gawalu, Shunda Misa Tumbalu, Kinchusung Bizivalu, Gamega. Let's keep it Gatodo.
Dujudina Gawalu.
Right, so that is a song again from the early 90s, I think, Dujudina Gawalu. And it comes to this version, in fact, came to us courtesy of M Studios in association with the Royal Office of Media. Right, Okila. We were discussing the tourism policy. Again, just a second. Let me just remind all you people on radio, in case you tuned in late, you're listening to my mixtape here on Radio Valley 99.9 FM. And my guest today is the Director General of Tourism, Dorji Dhradhul. Right, so we were obviously discussing the hot issue, which is, the rise of regional tourism and the impacts that may therefore follow and are already being seen. The concern, again, to a large degree, of course, comes from those who have been the traditional tourism businesses, the ones that are in the high-end area, who cater to the dollar-paying tourists, right? Could it also be helpful, don't you think, if they became a little more inventive about how they market Bhutan now and the kind of packages that they offer? Because, it stands to reason that, yes, this has been our standard, this has been our pie for such a long time, but we're not being very inventive about playing with the recipe. It's been the same standard thing that almost every tour operator has been offering, and there are very few tour operators out there who are being inventive about mixing things up and marketing it differently. Don't you think that might help as well?
Oh, definitely. And so in fact now TCB is actually also leading. Now in TCB, in 12 Highway Plan, we have got a flagship status. So in fact, one of the major component of this flagship program in 12 Highway Plan for tourism will be development of this new product. So basically, you are talking about the diversification of the tourism product.
Yes,
so this is very much in priority. And also some of these, the private, like for instance, Bhutan Spirit Sanctuary, I think they are also trying to specialize in wellness tourism.
Right.
And from TCB side, we are already thinking of some new tourism products like, for instance, spiritual tourism. That can be even good for the domestic tourism, and also some maybe adventure tourism. So agro tourism. So these are some of things. But as I think you have rightly said, even the private people, I think they should also be more innovative and innovative. But at the same time, we are also actually working towards that, and that is definitely one of the challenges of today's tourism.
Last.
Tourists, as I'm sure you must also heard this term, zonged out. The tourists in Bhutan are getting zonged out because
true.
everywhere they go, I mean, from one zong to next zong.
Yes,
so because of that, actually.
True.
And I don't know whether you'll be asking me this question or not, but
please.
Because I thought you were touching on that when you gave me this question, but I think later on you moved to this the other thing.
Yes.
Oh, I was thinking you were touching on this undercutting.
Oh, okay. Right. Please.
So
yes.
on
That's been a constant.
Yes, actually on that, what is happening is, as of now, another challenge is now our tourism policy of high value, low volume. One risk was now being posed is by this rapid surge in so-called regional tourism, which is not regulated.
Right.
That is definitely one. The other component is the so-called undercutting. Now, this undercutting actually cuts across. It's not just regional tourism. Even for the international tourism, this undercutting is taking place. And this is something our Bhutanese tour operators, our Bhutanese tour handlers are more accountable and more responsible. I think the ball is in our court. So, like some people are saying that Bhutanese tour packages are being sold cheap elsewhere in other countries.
Okay.
So let's say, for instance, at a foreign tour operator, let's say in country X, country X, they are selling Bhutan. Let's say our actually minimum package is $250 or 200.
Yes.
So let's say in another country, one tour operator is selling at 100 USD.
You're right.
They are announcing it publicly. What I feel is, it's okay. I mean, for them, we have no right. I feel we have no right to say you cannot sell our package in your country for $100. It's $250. I feel we cannot say.
Right.
But maybe we can say also, but I feel we cannot say.
We don't have the jurisdiction.
Yes.
Right.
But what we can do is, our people here, it is up to our tour operators, our tour handlers to say, no. I mean, we cannot give our tour for 100 USD. Okay, they must be asking us for 100. But definitely our tour operators say, no, we cannot go below 250. So therefore, what I'm trying to say is, this undercutting is happening, it seems, quite rampantly.
It's been happening for a long time.
So therefore, this is directly actually impacting on our high value, low impact or low volume tourism.
Right.
It's already, the foreigners are already thinking maybe now to come to Bhutan is become cheaper now.
Right.
So this is another thing actually we wanted to address. I don't know how, but this is really, as you said, this is happening for so long.
Right.
It is so deeply rooted. But I feel this is another one issue that we need to address. Otherwise, this is also going to have slowly a big impact on our policy of high value, low volume. We will lose this exotic nature or the exclusivity of Bhutan.
True.
So this is something. But as I said, once again, I would like to stress, the responsibility falls directly on Bhutanese people.
True.
Those who are engaged in this tourism.
In this business, right.
We have to be actually mindful of this. We have to respect our policy. And it is everybody's, I think, responsibility.
Increasingly, I've also been noticing, because I have many friends who are in the industry, I've also been noticing that there are many companies out there who have a no-nonsense policy against this. There is no business of undercutting. And they're doing very well by going on the official rates, not undercutting at all. And they're still doing very well. And one of the reasons why is that they are able to get in touch with clients directly, and that's been one of the advantages of having the internet now, of being connected. The undercutting business, it appears, came at a time when there were very few companies involved in the industry, and they had to compete for certain agents. So there was this limited pool of agents that they were competing for, and therefore you had that undercutting business. These days, I think most companies you can still do very well without having to undercut at all. And as like you rightfully said, also, I think it's a great responsibility to put on our own tour operators. If they want to think long term for their own businesses, for the welfare of their own businesses, then it's obviously a bad idea to be undercutting. Mushla.
True.
So
thank you.
Right. The onus is on us.
Yes.
And we have to be brave and make the right decisions and not think about short-term gains. But that being said, there will always be as is true with all regulations, there will always be a few loopholes, and there will always be these bad apples that will try and exploit these loopholes. Mushla. So that's a problem, and it's difficult, and there is no hard and easy solution to it. It'll always you make a solution, they'll always find another loophole.
True.
That'll always be there as well. But I'm just hoping that we will have the good sense to be responsible. And I see that there are many countries out there who, whether it's tourism or anything, any policy, they're becoming more and more conscious of their own society and of what is better for them in the long run. And many countries out there who are taking the right steps. And of course, even they have their bad apples. But overwhelmingly, when the majority take the right decisions, then the majority wins.
Exactly. I mean, that's the important point. The majority.
Right.
We want the majority doing the right thing.
Right.
Yes.
Last. So that is my hope as well.
Yes.
Right. So of course we've been discussing the tourism policy. Just one thing that I wanted to touch upon when we were talking about how we can be more innovative is also. We find in recent years many areas that weren't traditionally open to tourism are now being open, right? Is that a bit also in order to diversify the tourism products?
Yes, I mean, certain things I think will not change. Certain things I think we cannot open up.
Right.
I mean, for the good of the country.
Right.
The future of the country.
Right. Absolutely.
But I think
agree.
slowly, by and by, I think at the same time the government, I feel we should be also opening up.
Yes.
I mean, depending on case by case.
Okay.
So if there are, you have to see the pros and cons. So if the pros is more, then definitely I think we should go for opening up new products or new places. I mean, that I think should happen.
Last. I'm taking, for example, something like you mentioned Ampensagem's thing, mineral water or spring water. That very area, in fact, Tebisa, I know that the YDF, for example, has been working on developing that entire area, and they've looked at ecotourism as being one of the possible solutions in order to bring young people back into the villages. So there's some homestays in that area, and I did this little thing on a radio drama, a radio documentary on that entire thing. I wrote a couple of pieces on it as well. And I actually went to these places, walked the entire trail from Doshila to Chimilhagang twice, and stayed at some of these homestays along the way. And I was at first I was staying in a hotel in Levisa. And once I got to one of these homestays, I was thinking like, why? In my right mind, why did I go stay in a hotel in Levisa when it's so much more lively and homely and so much more of a genuine experience staying in these homestays? And I imagine that's coming from an urbanite like myself. I would imagine that anybody else coming from anywhere else in the world would like to stay more in a homestay there, for example. So, we're looking at things like that. Yet, the tourism industry has yet to pick up on things like that, which is along the way. I mean, Timpu Punaka, everybody does that. Yes. Timpu Punaka, Pobjika, the usual, right up until Pumtang or to the east also. But that's just along the stretch as well, and it's still not being used.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much for bringing up this. I've also been thinking the same thing actually. So if the tour operators are any tour operators are listening to this talk, then I also like to request them. I mean, these are some things that they need to promote this, because I also know started with the Rhododendron Festival, and linked with that the Divine Madman Trek. No? I think that's what we are talking about, the Kakit village.
Yes,
so this product is already there actually. Now only thing is, as you have said, is not being promoted. Now who has to promote this? I think the major onus falls on our tour operator. So not only that, actually, in fact, we are also thinking in 12-5 plan to take tourism to other parts of the country.
Right.
So now again, we will be requesting the tour operators to try to promote the other parts of the country. Of course, we will try to put in new tourism products in those places also, and also the infrastructure.
Yes.
So now, basically, I think what I'm saying is we're requesting the tour operators to be a part of this and actively promote this, because I also heard that, for instance, the Tour of the Dragon, which has been now, I think this event will be the coming will be the 10th one, celebrating or marking or conducting this for the 10th time. But what I heard is, I think our tour operators are again not actively promoting this. I mean, it's such a big event, we know that, no?
Yes.
So this is again something, I mean, so like this, there are so many other events which is already there, but somehow our tour operators are not actively promoting this. As you said, maybe they are not being innovative or inventive. Maybe they are too but I'm sure things will change now.
Like once we understand or
Yes.
once we see the benefits that come from a few exploratory forays into these different pockets and diversifying with new innovative products, I am sure tour operators will pick up, because the ones who have been doing it certainly see the merits there. So it's just a question of applying yourself and becoming a lot more inventive. I hope that is what will eventually happen. I really do hope. Las. Okay. Let's head on back into your playlist now. From discussing these big national issues, we're coming into something a lot more personal. And I probably understand why you have this song, "Beautiful Boy" by John Lennon. Is this something more personal?
Yes.
Right. Obviously. Please talk about it.
Yes, very much personal. Now, as you said, I think you've nicely connected this. This is very personal because this is one of my favorite songs.
Last.
In fact, and after we got our son.
Last.
As I said, he came very late in my life.
Yes, he's 7 years old right
he's
now.
just 7
Last.
years old.
Okay.
And the elder one is a daughter.
Right. How
So-
lucky for him, He has a far older sister. And you know how sisters can get about younger brothers. Very protective. I have 4 older sisters.
Okay.
So, and I was the first son.
Yes.
Large family as well, 7 siblings.
Okay.
Would have been 8. One died. She was also a sister. She would have been my oldest sister. So she died when she was 2.5 years old. But I understand, yes. Lucky for him. Very lucky for him. In fact, when I was growing up as a child, my sisters used to fight over me.
Okay.
All of them wanted to give me their attention. So lucky kid of this. So this is a song that is obviously
Dedicated
to your son.
Yes.
Plus, what's his name?
Melong Dhradhul.
Melong Dhradhul.
Yes.
By the way, I have to say that name, Dorji Dhradhul, by the way, is a very powerful name. Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche was known as the Dorji Dhradhul.
Is it? No,
Yes,
no, I
yes.
have no idea. Okay.
Right, he was known as the Dorji Dhradhul, in fact. So that's a very powerful name. Last, okay. And he wrote a whole treatise on, a book, in fact, on spiritual materialism,
Yes.
which I think relates in many ways to what we are talking about. But anyway, right. Okay, so let's check out John Lennon's Beautiful Boy. Alrighty, Beautiful Boy by John Lennon, which was playing here on my mixtape on Radio Valley 99.9 FM. For those of you who tuned in late, my guest today is the Director General of Tourism, Dorji Dhradhul. Right. And he was an agriculturalist, as some of you might know from listening to the show, especially in the first segment. He was an agriculturalist for about 15 years before he became Zonda of Gaza. And then all of a sudden, he made the shift again as the Director General of Tourism. I am thinking that one of the many reasons, I'm sure there are many, one of the probable reasons why you ended up as the Director General of Tourism also is because of the success of something that you initiated or that came about while you were in Gaza, which is the Royal Highland Festival. Tell us about that. How did that come about?
Okay, so thank you very much. So in fact, the vision actually came from His Majesty.
Right.
And the reason is, I think over the years, in course of our development, I think somehow the Highland areas have been little bit behind.
Right.
They couldn't really come into the mainstream developments. It's very obvious as of now. Even today, for instance, Lunana, the road connectivity will take very long time.
True.
And Laya, I think, as of today, I think we have shortened the walking distance by almost 1 day. So now the road is reaching. So likewise, in all other highlands, I think this is the scenario. So I think it was His Majesty's aspiration that they also should be taken care on board. And so basically the objective of Royal Highland Festival is that actually to mainstream the Highlanders in our development and also to provide them sort of a added support, incentive, so that they can also become a part of the development that is taking place now.
Right.
That is the main inspiration.
Okay. It would also, again, just connecting to our previous discussion, it would also be a typical case of diversifying the tourism products also. It wouldn't be...
Oh, yes.
Right.
No, definitely. Then the secondary benefit objective is for tourism. Now, when we do this Royal Highland Festival with that overall objective, and how we are going to achieve that objective is actually by bringing tourism.
Right.
So once the tourist comes there, then there will be some definitely
benefits that percolate to the local population as well.
Yes. Right. So these are very much tight. So as you said, yes, I think I also sometimes feel maybe because of the success of this Royal Highland Festival, when I was there, I have conducted three festivals,
Yes,
three annual festivals.
Mhm.
And I also could, link, maybe my posting here could be linked to that.
Right.
It may be or may not be. This is something that I've been also thinking.
Well, you've done some fantastic work in Gaza. I would imagine it was might have been difficult. For a person who is an agriculturist to go to some place like Gaza where there's minimal agriculture actually. Well, maybe livestock, but very very minimal real field agriculture,
Yes.
right? And then over there to make such an impact. I remember reading about say something like a central heating system, a Korean technology
Yes.
that you brought to Gaza as well. And admittedly, that is a high altitude place, right? Like you need a lot of heating for most months in the year. And this we used minimal wood, I think.
True, yes, true.
And it all starts from how you structure, and it starts from the architecture and the engineering
Yes.
before you actually build the house, right? La?
Yes.
And tell us about that.
No, in fact, it's a very simple technology.
Las.
But it's a 5,000-year-old technology
Wow,
in Korea.
5,000-year-old, Las.
So in Korea, I think they have been using this.
Okay.
Now, but even as of today, I think in the middle, I think they have almost like forgotten this.
Mhm.
But now again, I was told by the Koreans that now it is almost becoming like a sort of a very precious gift
Okay.
by the younger generation to the elderly people. Now it has become very expensive in Korea. To do this
Okay.
technology.
Okay.
But in our context, it is still a cheap technology because we
Right.
don't need anything, any materials to be imported actually.
Right.
So what we have tried in Gaza, in fact, it was done in Zonda's official residence in one
Okay.
of the room.
Nice.
So what we did is we just took out the planks of the floor.
Okay.
And then we just need to do some small modification there.
Right.
So there is no foreign materials required.
Okay.
What we need is a stone,
Mhm.
blocks, if not red bricks.
Mhm.
We need the red mud.
Right.
For Gaza, actually, we got it from Punakha.
Right.
From that.
Las Punakha, there's so much red sand anyway.
So we
Las.
need that.
Right.
And then we need, basically the red mud, these and the bricks and the stone.
Las.
That's it, lah.
Las.
And now, in terms of fuel consumption, you can almost say like I don't know I cannot say exactly, but it can be almost like 1/10 or 1/15 of the normal fuel that you would use for the same heat.
Okay.
Like Bukhari, if you use,
Las, yes.
then you'll be saving by almost by 10-15 times.
Wow.
That is the advantage.
Wow.
Now, why we are trying this is because Gaza, Laya and Lunana. Gaza is okay, but Laya and Lunana is so cold. And one of the reason, I think, of course, there are other reasons also. One of the reason why those days the Layabs and Lunabs on winter they migrate down to Punakha, to the warmer side. And the reason is mainly to get away from
the
this
cold. Right, yes.
So I thought, if we can introduce this technology there, and also in Laya and Lunana, you don't get much wood.
Right,
And this technology needs minimal.
Yes,
wood.
minimal, right.
So our objective was, the pilot that we did in Gaza, it was very successful.
Last.
In fact, I've been using this room for almost a year.
Las.
With that technology.
Last.
And we were hoping to scale up this in Laya and Lunana.
Okay.
But as of now, unfortunately, it has not really happened.
Okay.
But again, this year, while I was there, only we proposed this proposal to Jeff, and the UNDP is actually funding another one pilot in Laya school actually.
Okay.
So the work they must have started.
Right,
So
right.
slowly, I think if this can be picked up in Laya and Lunana, the cost investment is also not much,
Last.
and this is really going to make a big difference. And other advantages, this is supposed to be therapeutic,
Okay.
medicinal. It's good, supposed to be good for your arthritis.
Okay.
And so many sort of
Wow.
diseases.
Wow. There's so many technologies out there that we're quite not aware of, which have existed for a long time or exist in other
Yes.
places, and we're just not quite aware of them. And, many of them are very cost effective. And what comes to mind, again, since you mentioned that it was Korean, last year, I think it was, I found out in Korea, they also use, like we have the culverts along our roads,
Yes,
just
yes.
to prevent cars going off.
Yes.
Not very effective. We also have those barriers, the steel barriers that we put. In Korea, I believe some bright person came up with the idea of, using old tires, like we have our money locos yovola
Yes.
that can swivel around
Yes,
the fulcrum. So you have those built along
Wow.
the roads. So what happens is if a car goes off the road, it doesn't take off the culvert or that thing. You know what would happen on our roads is you either take off the culvert and you might be saved by the culvert, but chances are you won't. And if it's those steel barriers, also the same outcome.
Yes.
But over here, what happens is no matter how big your vehicle and what your force, automatically because you hit the tires, it spins and then it just bounces you back onto the road.
That's very.
So the technologies which are so simple out there, and that we could, very
Yes.
easily adopt over here. Just wanted to get that idea out because it's been burning here in my chest for a long time. Last, okay. Also, recently you wrote an article in Kinsale. What makes you not a civil servant? Now, I want to close this show out with this discussion because, like I said right in the beginning, I appreciate so much that you came here onto the show. I had a feeling when I approached you first time, to come onto the show that you would probably say no. But very refreshingly, you said, yeah, okay, we'll think about it. Why not? We know we can do it. And I guess that reinforces your argument in this paper that you've written, What Makes You Not a Civil Servant. Tell us about that paper briefly. So what was your central premise?
Yeah, so in that paper, basically, article, basically, what I'm trying to say is the expectation from the people is not being met by civil servants. Of course, civil servants have been doing so much. For the last 50 years, I think we have been doing this.
Accepted?
That is there. We are not saying we have not done anything.
Right.
But at the same time, since now we hear a lot of these reservations being expressed in papers by people and all, so I started to kind of accept this. I said, I was telling myself, yes, I think what they're saying is true. Because there seems to be so many loopholes, shortcomings, in providing the public services. And the reason is because I myself have experienced this.
Ras.
Now, in that paper also, I think I gave some example how I have confronted the challenges in getting services, public services. Now, the point I'm trying to make is me. At that time, I was a Zongda, okay, and before that, I was a director.
Yes, sir.
So even a civil servant at that senior position, director and a Zongda level, when he wants to get certain service from another government agency,
it's extremely difficult.
yes, the experience was, in number of cases, it was not so easy.
Last.
So then I started to imagine, what would be the state of the ordinary citizens, no? So therefore, I was really convinced, yes, definitely the civil servants, we really need to work, change the way we do our things. So the main objective of that article is, now me being at this senior civil servants position, if I accept this fact publicly, maybe it would have some impact in encouraging other civil servants. And in fact, that paper, I have also made it very clear, actually is targeted to not to our senior or seasoned civil servants. We have done our part. Basically, what I'm trying to say is, what makes you not civil servants is targeted to our new generation of civil servants, those who want to enter civil service and those who are just joined civil service. This is an sort of advice to them. Now, in the past, of course, we have done our part, but we have also had a lot of shortcomings. Now, if you all to be real civil servants, as per the definition of civil service, or who is a civil service, then these are the certain things that you need to do. Say these are some. I have given some of my ideas on this.
Last, and it is tremendously appreciated. Let me tell you that. And again, I have to stress this: that for somebody in your position, a grade 2 civil servant official, to admit that yes, there are problems with the civil service, is again a very big statement. It is. You do not come across civil servants who, and I'm not giving you empty praise over here, man. This is genuine. You do not come across civil servants who are ready to accept criticism, first of all. Forget about accepting and admitting that, things are wrong in their own corner. You will hardly get anybody, even listening to you if you had criticisms. And we've been doing it in the media. We've been doing it for a long time. We've been criticizing constructively and sometimes destructively also, I have to admit, on the great issue of the civil service. Now, here's the thing. The way I see it, our bureaucracy is an inherited one, is one that we inherited from India, who inherited it from colonial Britain. And the bureaucracy under colonial Britain was designed to keep the local populations under control and to keep the civil servants in control of everything. So I think that sort of value system has percolated over the centuries. And I'm glad you have pointed out again that what you had written is like a little word of advice to those who are actually starting out on this journey as civil servants. Because the civil service that we need now in the 21st century is certainly not the civil service of the 19th century British Raj. It's certainly not the civil service that is existing right now. We need to innovate there as well, I think. And therefore, I think it makes a lot of a difference for somebody in your position to be able to admit that and suggest ways forward. So that is most appreciated. Now, how I'd like to surmise all of this is this. This is, again, a very promising development for you to come here, for you to write that article, for you to accept and admit that not everything is hunky-dory and good. That there is still so much that we can do and we must do. What it means to me, what it says about you as a person, is that you are probably a person of a different mindset. You are a lot more open. You're a lot more transparent. And most of all, what comes out eventually, Dorji Dhradhul, is your intention. Your intention is good and your intention is clear. That, I think, is one of the most striking things about you as a person, which is why I have to say, it has been an absolute pleasure and a privilege for us here on Radio Valley to have you on this show, My Mixtape. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you very much, sir.
Let's close out then on a very positive note with this final song on your playlist, We Are the World, from USA, by the group USA for Africa. You want to talk about that?
Yes, so basically why I chose this song is, again inspired by His Majesty, because in one of the quote, I think Majesty said that during his reign, he hopes not only to make Bhutan a very beautiful and a happy country, but basically he says he wants to go beyond Bhutan and make the world a better place, actually.
Right.
So therefore, I think this song is actually basically we are talking about We Are the World. So everybody has a role to play, the bigger role. You go beyond your own country also.
So what did I tell you about the intentions of this man here? The intentions are good and the intentions are clear. All right, before we close out, a final shout out because we've been talking about inclusiveness, we've been talking about collectiveness, we've been talking about all of these things, being concerned about everybody. A big shout out to my homies up there in Chamgaon Central and in Thimphu Central. Hope you guys are doing fine. I know many of you listen very loyally to the show. Thank you so much. Of course, a big shout out to all my listeners out there in New York, Dubai, Singapore, the Philippines, Malaysia, Australia, all of you guys out there. I know you're missing home, and that's probably one of the reasons why you listen to the show. Big shout out to you guys as well. Right, so we'll play you We Are the World, which is the final song here while my guest is here in the studio. Dorji Dhradhul, thank you again so much for being here. Remember, this show comes to you rebroadcast tomorrow on Saturday and day after tomorrow on Sunday as well. You can always catch up in its entirety by logging onto the Facebook page of Radio Valley, where you will find the SoundCloud link. And of course, those of you who are loyal viewers as well of this program on YouTube, YouTube. The post will be up on YouTube very soon. All right, so have a splendid weekend, all of you out there, and let's hope all of us together will create a better and more beautiful Bhutan.
Thimphu is Radio Valley's hometown. We at Radio Valley believe that you and us together, we can make Thimphu the friendliest capital in the world. If you too have the same dream for Thimphu, from here on, let us refer to all travelers and visitors, be it regional or international, as guests and not as tourists. We cannot achieve this dream without your help, so do join the cause by smiling and greeting every visitor you cross path with. If you can go out of your way to help, nothing like it. Every one of us here at Radio Valley, we pledge, starting the Losar of 2019, that we will treat visitors and travelers with utmost respect and care. Thimphu, the friendliest capital city in the world by 2025.